Hi, welcome back to Blaze Hackman Industries. Oh, my hands look huge. Today, I thought that I would just run through a bit of a studio update. And when I was thinking about making this video, I kept on going down these like little side quest paths, like, oh, maybe I should show people how to do a voiceover, or maybe I should show them how to edit it. And I just really had to try and be disciplined and stick to what I've done to get this studio to this point. If you're just not interested in the preamble here, how I got there or the rationale behind it, just scroll through at the top of the video. Once you see something that looks like a big red TARDIS or the surrounds, you'll know that we're kind of into the actual studio update itself. But I feel it would be a disservice to where the studio is now if I ignored kind of technologically where I started and what my approach was to get there. And there's so many other things, like, for example, I am here on a Shure SM7B, which is, I think, probably the most popular, famous podcasting microphone there is. And I use this just straight for streaming. I could use it as a professional voiceover mic, I think. With my background, I started at the age of 19 in commercial radio. I was in it for about 12 years. And then I moved into acting and voiceover and that kind of thing. So I've read a lot of commercials. I've been on the air a lot and done it from a long time ago, 30 years ago to now. So I've kind of seen the evolution of technology. And now basically the setup I have at home is kind of better than what I started with back in the analog days in some ways. Depends how you view it. But this microphone here is fantastic. The only thing about it is that I have to control some of the environment. The previous house I lived in, it was beautiful view, ocean view, but it wasn't very, it wasn't a space where I felt like I could control sound, especially if I had jobs that I was doing for big clients. Then I want to be able to control that environment. And that's what about having a good studio is, having control. And so this, for example, this mic's great, but I've got a lot of filters on it. It is kind of directional, but I've added more to cut out peripheral sounds. And at the old place, it was, we had construction going on all the time. So it was really difficult. And then I was thought about going under the house, but then that would occasionally flood. It wasn't, and I did build a quasi studio down there, but sounds would still bleed through. And then you still have the problem of having to add filters and you're really not delivering a pure raw sound. I think the only thing I am considering, under the advice of a friend, is putting a limiter on anything I do in Pro Tools from now on, especially with Source Connect. I'll get into that later on, but as part of the lead up to creating a really great studio environment where I'm at now, for years and years, I just suffered and I would try the blanket forts or a real minimalist approach. So I actually had this for a while, which is a Mic 96K, and it's just it's quite heavy actually for the size of it. But this you could just USB into your Mac, or I never really used it on Windows, but I used it into my iPhone. If someone wanted something reasonable quality, then or above average, I would just use this. And just a great little mic. And even when I was doing screen tests and stuff, I'd stick it on the stand, and it would just increase the microphone quality. So they're still available. A Podgy Mic 96K, I think you can get them online for like $300 Australian. And you just can't fault this microphone. But a professional engineer can kind of spot when you're trying to bullshit them and give them this, unless they're asking for that. But then the Shure was like, okay, this is great, but as I said, for streaming, it's wonderful. It controls the directionality, blah, blah, blah. But I just wanted to really go the next level and give people a top quality microphone. When I've worked in professional environments, I've used a Sennheiser 416, and that's always been my preferred microphone, and I've got one now. So when we move to the iPhone shot, I'll show you that. It's interesting now too. You will see a bit of in this video. So I'm using OBS, which I use for streaming. It's great for recording too. One thing I will update external to my studio, I'm getting off the track here, but I will need video feed into the booth eventually. It's actually like a meeting booth, so it's not that big of an environment. So I've got like a smaller stand, which I could put the iPhone onto. But just in terms of streaming, I'm using a Logitech Brio 4K camera now. But as you can see, I've got a green screen at the background here, and we're getting, as I've zoomed in, I'm getting a lot of feathering. So it's just not the highest quality overall. So I might have to get a DSLR and put that on a stand eventually and just increase that quality as well. So across the stream, we're getting a better picture, because with this, I've got a window over here. I can control the back, but you get monitors on. It's really hard to control the light. So it's all about control and controlling, if you want consistent light, so you just jump in, get on a stream or get into a booth. You want that consistency in your environment, so you don't have to tweak it and waste time all the time. And today, if I had this environment, this monitor here on the right on, it'd be a lot bluer. If it was a sunny day, this would completely change. So I'm looking kind of orange here, but this is one of the places where I work, and you can see that even with good equipment, you're still going to have control issues. So I guess that's kind of about it as far as outside the studio. Initially with the studio, I was going to run, because the booth I've got, and I'll explain, it's not actually like a Studio Bricks, it's a Framery One meeting pod, which I've adapted into a soundproof booth. But inside that, I thought, well, I want to have all my equipment outside so that I don't have any noise inside the studio, like a PC or anything like that. And I was going to patch it into this PC initially, but then I realized I recently, like 4 or 5 months ago, bought a MacBook Pro 14-inch with an M3 chip, solid state drive. It's as quiet as a mouse, and so it's even better. I can sit there on my little bench in my studio, patch straight into it with Source Connect, and then all I need, and I'm going to an Apollo Solo preamp. So the only signal that's really going into the Framery is the Ethernet cord, because I've got power in the studio as well. And with minimal of intrusion and modification, I've been able to make that setup so I can run an Ethernet cord. Anyway, let's not ramble on. Okay, let's go out of this weird Orwellian environment I've created here, and we'll switch to the iPhone, and I'll just take you through where my professional work from home office studio booth is now. Okay, so that's where I was just sitting, doing my little broadcast. That's the SM7B I was talking about. And then you got the Logitech Brio. And, for a while I was like, oh, maybe I could make this the studio and work and make it a blanket fort or something like that. And even this room, when we moved in here, I thought would be, I could put acoustic tiles and contain the room, but it's just a lot of work. So I was on the hunt for something. And even my PC, it's a pretty powerful PC, but it's very noisy. There's just no way, you'd have to insulate yourself from that. You can see now, this is my Framery One booth. That's the bottom half. The PC is right next to it, and I don't even have to worry about, I've got a bit of rubber insulation down the bottom, like a mat, to stop it from making noise, because when you start gaming, PUBG, those kind of games, there's a lot of intensive workload, gets quite noisy, it heats up, but that was mainly to stop vibration. But it's really not a concern here, because this thing, the Framery One booth, does everything I need. So I do have my green screen around here. Let me try not have a disaster. We'll lift that up so I can just walk around a bit more. And there's a bit of insulation here. We've got files and stuff from my partner, and she works from this desk here, and this here actually works as kind of like a way to divide it into an office, which she thinks is a scam, and it kind of is. So when you walk in here, let's go back, okay, because I want you to see. So this is kind of like an add-on to the house, but that was the original house. And then I don't think it was too recent, they added this room on the back. So when you walk in, you're separated from the house, and then you do have this space here. If we go down to 0.5, that's better. Then we walk in here, but this has got a glass roof. It's a conservatorium, and I think it's a tin roof for this room. So even if you did use, go on Wish and get yourself a bunch of cheap insulation, it just wouldn't make a difference. There is a door here, but if you look up there, it's basically when it's raining, you can hear a bit of vibration. I think there's just like tin on top of that roof there. So it was a problem. On paper, when we walked in here, it looked good, but it just still was a problem. So for streaming, it's fine. because you can see my setup there. It's kind of cozy with the screen down, but you've got glass windows, kind of tin wooden roof, and it's not like it's a Federation house, but we're not really as insulated from the sound as we think. So I had to come up with a solution. And I thought, build a blanket fort, and there's plenty of places you can go online, go on YouTube, get yourself some PVC, spend a few hours, and you'll have a blanket fort, but you don't really have control. So then I saw this. This is a Framery One booth. I saw it on Facebook Live. It's probably, I'm about 6 foot tall, so it's probably about 7.5 feet tall. It's pretty heavy. So this thing, brand new, if you look up it's a meeting booth for offices where they want to control the environment. And I saw it on Facebook for sale, and it was like $15,000 brand new, but that was 5 years ago. So yeah, probably not that much anymore, but it was on sale for $750. And I thought, that's such a deal. And I wasn't completely convinced it was a legit sale, because the woman who was, she seemed to do like one of those WeWork setups, but she just was a very bad communicator. But eventually I got a hold of her, negotiated it, went out there, saw it, gave her the money. Then I realized that I thought that I would actually disassemble it and transport it myself, but I just realized when I got there, and they were also in a workspace, they wanted to get out quick, so I had to get someone else in. I found a guy that specializes in this, and then I got him down to $1,000 to move it. So that really makes the whole thing, we're just talking about the booth here, around about $1,750. He picked up on a truck. He and a mate came out, and they put up in a couple of hours. We chose this as the best part of the office to put it in, just ergonomically, feng shui, all that stuff. The only problem was this door handle, because the door was quite heavy, so the door actually wasn't on it. So he had to fix up the top of it and make it sit there properly. It's a little bit loose, probably, like that kind of motion. But overall, it's been bloody good. My boys have used it for school projects or just to get away or study, and has used it. So it's not a huge space, but it does the job. And it's kind of like insulating material on the inside in wood, and then covered with this like metal covering, sheet metal. And it's magnetic too, so it's been handy. Just put things like there for the office. Up the top there, there was an air conditioning unit, and it was a fan, and I managed to find a really easy way to unscrew that and then remove it, because it wasn't that efficient, the fan, and it was noisy. But it was just a couple of screws and a plug, and out it came. And then you can see some Ethernet cord up there. So I wanted to have a stable connection. I've got another mate that says he uses Wi-Fi. He uses his studio all the time, and it just backs it up. If there's a dropout, it backs it up to the cloud. But with this Ethernet cable, all I need to do is come up to the PC, pull it out, and then I've got an adapter. So it basically swaps one to the other. So I just plug in an adapter there, and I get great signal, which means that I don't have to sort of climb up. That's constantly there. I've just wrapped it up for the time being, but usually I just let that dangle down, and then I can just pull the cord, the Ethernet, out of the PC into the adapter, so I don't have to go up there to connect anything. And then that goes into, with an adapter I got from Apple, into the M3 14-inch MacBook Pro. So it's also got a light. So all this, there's one plug here, and that really is just for the light. And everything's just beautiful. It's finished so nicely on this thing, so you really can't see too much. It's all about design, and there's no wires, well, apart from mine, but generally there's nothing hanging off it. It's just like a monolith from 2001. Open this up, and then I was in here earlier, obviously, but the light will come on, and you can see that the Ethernet cable has come down through here. So there's a hole up there, and then there's like an aluminum plate. I did have to get a hole saw, so let's add another $50 to that, and then drill through it. It did smoke up a bit, but just so if worse comes to worse, I lost power or something, I could get, and I thought I might have to get like volume monitoring and everything coming in here. So it's just a big hole, like, I don't know, 5 centimeters, but it's not too intrusive. And then I didn't even cut into this fabric, this soundproofing here. I just managed to get the cable through, but you know, if I need to, I can easily cut a hole there and make it fit. So you can see here, I've got a script pinned up. So I actually bought a stand, but there's not much space in here. So then I've just got these pins. So when I'm reading, I can just pin my script straight into the wall, and that's this soundproofing, but it's spongy, so you can just shove stuff in there. I've got the XLR cable coming out. So this is a Sennheiser 416. It's what I've used professionally in studios for years. It makes my voice sound great, it suits my voice, and that I've got hanging over this pole. So it's an extendable pole I got from Spotlight, which is like a fabric store, really well-known one in Australia. And then I just had 2 on either side, because the issue was there's glass here. As it's a meeting booth, it's kind of transparent, so you've got glass on either side. Glass is very reflective, so I had to solve that. So at Spotlight as well, I hunted around, and I got these grey curtains, which are blackout curtains for your bedroom. But they were the right thickness, so they've been great so far. I thought I might have had to get another layer of each, but then I just threaded them through the 2 extendable rods there, and I've cut the bottom off so they're nice and tidy. They're a little bit long. And it's the same color as inside the studio. The studio meeting booth does have this little stool you can sit on. Generally, I'm not a fan, but you're actually not totally sitting down, because that actually, with, you know, more vigorous reads, or if you want more control, and like singing with voiceovers, you need to have that room so you can really expand your diaphragm and kind of do what you want with your instrument, let's call it. I could still pull this out, but it's not as quiet as well, so it's a nice compromise. I can sort of sit there half lean, but if it's a longer session, then I'm finding that I'm not kind of getting fatigued by standing up all the time. The only thing I was worried about with this stool is that if I took it out, I could just lean in the corner, and then I'd have more space, because you can see it's pretty tight. I've just got a stand, but if I really want, I don't really need at this stage a music stand for sheet music, unless I find a need for it. But it's just handy to keep this default little desk here in the meeting space, because then I can put everything else on there. But if I pulled that out, I'd have more room to move around, but then I need a sheet music stand, and then my mixer would have to move. So at this point, it's kind of all working. But these cheap nylon, I mean, they're nylon or some kind of plasticky configuration. They're the same color as the studio. They look good. This muted grey color you can see on the popper, it's all the same. It's all working well. And we're able to control the stand as well, because the pole that I bought, the XLR cable, goes straight out, so there's no stress on it. I'm not hitting it, and it goes up and over, and it's kind of out of the way. And then I can do micro adjustments with this when I need to, and everything's nice and quiet. I mean, it's not ideal. There's a little bit of, down the bottom there. You just have to keep tweaking it, and you are sort of squished in the corner, but it's not too uncomfortable. If I had a really long session, I would probably be concerned about overheating, but it does also come with this, plug-in, so I could pull that out if I'm under charge with, I always like to have a stable connection or everything plugged in, but worst comes to worst, I could pull it out and then stick a little fan in there, and then just between takes turn it on and off. There you can see the adapter for the Ethernet, for the M3 chip. And then there's also a Thunderbolt cord, which goes from the Apollo Solo, and that goes into the M3. I mean, just that cord itself is about $110. So this is just kind of the most stable setup. And yeah, these have been great, these curtains. Just so when you go in, in fact, let's try and do it now. We'll go in. Got a lot of stuff here that charge up, keep it handy. So we close that, and you can see that there's you can hear it I can hear it, you'll hear it too. The sound's a bit more controlled. See if I can zoom this iPhone out a bit more. And then eventually I've got a little stand down here. You probably can't see it, for another microphone. And then what I can do is pull that off. And instead of having a whole tripod in here to put my camera on, if I'm making videos in here, because I will make a video on how to do a voiceover, then I'll probably just sit with a really ugly angle on myself, or put a mount up there for the phone and shoot down, or just like a stand microphone stand thing, which I can adapt for my phone because I've got a iPhone adapter, really nice one from DigiDirect, which will sit and adapt to a microphone stand to hold an iPhone. And then I can just face it back to myself and run you through how to, my techniques for doing voiceovers. Now, let's make this even more soundproof. Close that. So then it's just a quick fix, but I think it does a great job. And on this side too, of controlling the environment. I've shut down the outside noise. Be very surprised if you hear anything. And these are nice because they're light on this side, so it's kind of like not making it too dark. And you can see that Ethernet cable coming through there, and it kind of hide it here, and everything trails over. And anything below, you can't really see. There's a Apollo Solo preamp. I was going to get the Apollo Twin. I've had it before, but a mate of mine said that's pretty good. And I just need a kind of limiter just for louder sessions if I'm getting really loud and I'm making a backup file in Pro Tools, because when you're going down the line Source Connect, you're communicating with another studio. They'll be recording at their end, but it's also good practice to have your own backup in case everything falls apart and you don't waste your client's time, and it looks good for you to have a backup. And here's the M3. So there I've got Pro Tools open already. You can see the signal coming through. And if I want to record on the track, it's recording over something I did before. You see the signal coming through there. That's beautiful. And then we go down here. We've got Source Connect. Alice Lane is a mate of mine. It's his studio. I did have a chat with him the other day just to test it all out. But basically, I can hear him. I can hear myself. I can send him high quality audio, or any studio globally that's got one of these. And then I can also record my backup here in Pro Tools. And then I've got an environment I can control. When I'm reading, I've got a script up there. I can move it around. So this is a blessing in disguise. Or lower it a bit. So if you can adjust the height of the microphone as well. Well, it's a bit X-rated. So it's just beautifully set up. And for, $1,700, it's great. But I mean, look, it's not a cheap exercise doing this, because this probably cost me, realistically, I had another laptop. I left it in the rain. So this is a bit of an insurance job, this one. So this is probably $3 for the new MacBook Pro. And I think, I use this daily anyway for my own business. So I'm constantly pulling it out of here, and it's doable, but it's not ideal. Ideally, my mate Grant's got an Apple Studio. It's like a little box. So you want something in here that's reliable, that sits in here all the time. And you come in, you plug it in, away you go. You never have to worry about it again. And everything's patched all the time, and you're not wasting time or your client's time because you fuck something up. But it's a great setup. It's a powerful chip. It does everything I want. And the other thing too is that I could just, as easily roll this over there, and then, find a script here, or do a Google search, do it all in front of me, and you can't hear a thing. This thing does not make a noise, which they used to. The old Macs used to be really noisy. My partner's, she got one. I've still got it after nearly 10 years, and it's great, but it's just noisy as hell, so I won't use that. And the Apollo Solo's been great as well. So I think that just about wraps it up, folks. That's the studio. Nice little down light there as well. And it's getting a little bit warm now, but, you can just run that fan. But it's all self-contained. And the idea is, just get a bit of work through, get it to pay itself off, and be autonomous and just have that little side hustle happening. Anyway, that's about it for now. The next time I come back, I'll probably just show you how I read voiceover, what my process is, and then we might even get into a bit of editing. So you don't have to be, a high-level editor. You could do it on Audacity. You could do it. You don't have to use. I'm not even a Pro Tools user. I've actually done most of my editing on Adobe Premiere Pro and just exported it. Anything out of the timeline as a WAV or an MP3. Or GarageBand. So you don't have to be a whiz. You just have to be willing and be able to deliver the quality consistency. All right, that's it for now. Over and out. I'll speak to you soon.